The cabin nestled in the Blue Mountain woods, where only the wind and the cold scent of pine trees ring, was meant to symbolize a new beginning. A home that an elderly couple had given to their adopted son, as if to soothe his troubled past. But one morning in early October, they were found lying in a pool of blood. And their adopted son, the only survivor, was gone without a trace. No alarm sounded. No neighbors witnessed. No gunshots rang out in the woods. Only one thing was clear: someone had killed them with the same familiar hands, and fled into the woods, 2 bodies. A ransacked cabin. And a missing teenager. Union County Sheriff Brad Overton choked up at a press conference. The scene of the crime left the small Oregon community stunned. A place where people still leave their keys in the ignition, where weekend dinners are often backyard barbecues. No one could have imagined that such a bloody tragedy could happen in the middle of what was once considered a retreat paradise. Even as police sealed off the trail leading to the cabin, no one could figure out what was going on. What could have led an adopted boy, who called them Dad and Mom, to become the prime suspect in this grisly case? They were the Whitmores, Gerald and Linda, who had taken the boy in when he was just 11 years old, from a foster home more than 300 miles away. No one knew much about the teenager's past, only that his biological father had beaten him and his mother had abandoned him without a trace. The couple had devoted themselves to healing the wounds left by life. They moved to a remote mountain area, built a small cabin, and started over again, as Linda wrote in her diary. But on the morning of October 12, 2013, their bodies were found by the local mailman, who had become suspicious after finding the mailbox full for 5 days. When he opened the cabin door, he smelled a strong odor, not of rotting wood or old food, but the metallic scent of blood. Linda lay face down on the kitchen floor, still wearing the blue sweater she wore in the fall. Gerald collapsed a few feet away, still clutching the television remote. Both had been hit on the head with heavy objects, precisely and brutally. There was no sign of forced entry. No missing items. No sign of a struggle, only a charcoal drawing on the living room wall, a picture of a burning house, and scrawled beneath it, "They didn't listen to me." And the adopted son, the boy they once called Noah, vanished as if he had never existed. The people of La Grande still can't figure out why Noah, now 15, attended the local high school. He didn't play sports, didn't have many friends, but no one had ever seen him rebel. Just a quiet kid who loved books and drawing, his art teacher recalled. But in the pages of his old notebooks, people later found gruesome drawings: a family of 3 buried alive, a house with screams coming from the windows. The police found Noah's diary, hidden under his bed. The last page was written in shaky handwriting: "Silence is the most painful. When they don't see you. When they pretend everything is okay. You're not their child anymore. You're just a walking pet." The story quickly spread throughout Oregon, then the United States. Teenager kills foster parents at cabin, flees into woods, dead or alive, unknown. But was it simply a rebellious child? Or was there a hidden past behind it, wounds that love couldn't heal? In the days after the murder, search parties scoured every inch of the Blue Mountain forest. They brought in dogs, heat-seeking helicopters, and even volunteers. But Noah was still nowhere to be found. No phone. No signal. No message. It was as if he had evaporated. Theories abounded. Did he kill himself in the woods? Did a third party help him escape? Was he in another cabin, planning something worse? People began to panic. Children were not allowed to go to school alone. Gun shops in the town reported a spike in sales. Some families even hire bodyguards. No one knows if Noah will return, or when. Let's retrace Noah's steps. We'll retrace Noah's steps, from the high school where he sat in the back of the class, to the cabin where family used to be. We'll review every detail the police found, or missed. We'll turn the pages of history, to understand why he chose to kill, and was it really the only option? The question still hangs in the trees of Blue Mountain. If you were a forgotten child, would you scream, or would you disappear? There is something strange about the Blue Mountains, where the misty pine forests and dark gravel seem to slow down time. There, people live isolated from the modern world, no phone signals, no internet, no car horns. Just nature and people who choose to live simply and wildly, and that is what makes the Whitmore family tragedy all the more painful. Before the fateful October of 2013, no one in the town of La Grande, a community of less than 13,000 people, thought they would one day read about their own tragedy in the newspaper. La Grande is a place where autumn leaves fall on porches, where children ride their bikes around the square without anyone worrying. Where neighbors leave their doors unlocked because who would do anything bad here? Linda and Gerald Whitmore moved to a cabin deep in the Blue Mountains after retiring. They were former teachers in Eugene, a kind, intellectual couple, living a minimalist life. They adopted Noah in 2010, 3 years after applying to adopt from the Oregon foster care system. They loved him from the moment they met him. Linda said that when Noah sat quietly in the chair, his eyes filled with sadness, she knew he was her son, said Linda's close friend, Susan Keller. The three of them moved into a log cabin that Gerald had built with their own hands. There were no neighbors. No cars. Just them, nature, and long winters and a cozy fireplace. It was like being cut off from the world, and the three of them were able to build a family from scratch. Linda wrote in her diary, Noah, then 12, seemed happy in those first months. He attended a small local high school, did well academically, and loved to draw and read fantasy novels. His teacher said he had an imagination that burned like a forest fire in the summer. But then, one day, his bike was found abandoned on the side of a mountain trail. No blood. No strange footprints. No screams. No missing items, just one thing, silence. Chilling silence, the first signs of tragedy. Before the police discovered the massacre at the cabin, there were some strange details that were overlooked. Cookies said she hadn't seen Whitmore for 5 days. Linda was the type of person who never missed Cookie Friday. Something just didn't feel right. A high school teacher also noticed Noah missing 3 days in a row, without a note. They called the cabin but no one answered. In the first week of October, a grocery store clerk in La Grande, where Linda usually bought her butter, called. Even the landline was dead. The mailman, Harold, saw the mailbox full, so he decided to drive up to the cabin to check. And it was he who opened the door to hell. 2 decomposing bodies, a ruined house, and Noah's terrifying absence. I don't think I'll ever sleep well again after that night. Linda gave me apple pie. Gerald offered me cider. They didn't deserve to die like that, Harold testified. Case summary. The time was determined to be sometime between the night of October 7th and the morning of October 8th, 2013. Linda was attacked in the kitchen. Gerald was hit from behind while watching TV. There were no knife wounds, just blunt force trauma to the head, possibly from a piece of wood or heavy metal tool. The house had not been extensively ransacked, except for Noah's room. It had been ransacked, the walls were scribbled, and a map of the Blue Mountains had been torn off, marking a narrow ravine called Coyote Gulch. Noah, the prime suspect, left no trace. No bike. No backpack. No money. But in the fireplace, police found burnt pieces of paper, believed to be from his old diary, which included passages like, "They didn't really want me. They just wanted a dog that could say thank you. They called it love." Many in the town were so shocked that they didn't believe he was the killer. It couldn't have been Noah. "He was just a little kid, always looking at the floor," said the cafe owner, but there was no denying it. All the evidence pointed to him. And no one could explain the motive, at least not yet. Community sentiment. This only happens in movies. The town's atmosphere froze. On local social media, people began to argue fiercely. Is he crazy? Or is there some secret in the house that no one knows about? If it were their own child, would things be different? Could someone have murdered all three and staged a fake crime scene? The market was deserted. Schools were closed for 3 days. Some people even took guns with them when they went into the woods. The town's innocence was buried with Linda and Gerald, and then darkness fell over Blue Mountain. Police found small footprints leading out the back of the cabin, disappearing as they crossed the stream. At the same time, a hiker reported seeing a lone teenage figure, wearing a baseball cap, walking along the edge of a cliff 10 miles away, but when he returned, he was gone. The area known as Coyote Gulch, which Noah's map had marked, became the prime search point. It was rugged, rocky, and without any roads. But the searchers found nothing. Just the feeling of being followed in the woods. "Something's not right here," a policeman said as he emerged from the woods, and people began to ask, was Noah still alive? And if so, what was he waiting for? Noah didn't disappear. He left behind pieces, we just didn't dare put them together. As soon as the scene was sealed off, police began combing the cabin from the attic down to the basement. A special forensics team from Salem was called in, because the case was quickly classified as premeditated and intentional aggravated domestic violence. And it was at the scene, Noah's room, that they found details that would make even the most seasoned investigator shudder. Gerald and Linda Whitmore, both in their 60s, were kind people who came off as naive, as their close friends described them. Linda was emotional, often writing Noah handwritten notes even though they lived in the same house. Notes taped to the refrigerator read, "I love you, even when you don't say anything. You are the light of this family. If you're sad, tell me. I'm not a fortune teller." Gerald, quieter and tougher, was a former Marine. He was the one who initiated the move to the mountains to teach Noah how to be a strong man. But according to Linda's diary, Gerald was often too harsh. She wrote, "Noah is no soldier. He is a boy who was abandoned." But Gerald taught him that tears are weakness. In his school notebook, Noah wrote a poem, "They told me to be as silent as the forest but the forest howls when it burns." It seemed that something in that house, or between those three people, was not as peaceful as they appeared. As Noah became the prime suspect, the police began to examine the possibility of a third person being involved. They considered a distant relative. Linda's younger brother, Kurt, had been to the cabin several times, and had argued with Gerald over the property. But he had a solid alibi. He was in California that week. There was surveillance at the hotel. A former classmate of Noah's, a teenager named Trey, who had been expelled for threatening a friend, reportedly befriended Noah on a Reddit forum called "The World Doesn't Understand Us." When questioned, Trey said, "Noah once wrote, 'Someday I'm going to burn my past. But I thought it was just emo.' Who would have thought?" There's no evidence Trey ever visited the cabin. The foster parents themselves, a wild theory has been raised. Could there have been emotional, or even physical, abuse in the family? But Noah's autopsy at the time of adoption showed no signs of violence. And neighbors heard nothing unusual. However, Linda's diary left a few ambiguous lines. I think I did something wrong. Not everyone is made to be a mother. But it's too late now. Forensics noted some chilling details at the scene: living room, family portrait cut in half, Noah's part slashed off, kitchen, refrigerator door wide open. Bread moldy, wall clock stopped at 2:13 a.m., Noah's room, charcoal drawings all over the walls, faceless silhouettes, with the words "I'm awake, they're not." Wardrobe, a bushcraft knife, with dried blood, hidden behind the floorboards. Outside the cabin, police found a pair of muddy shoes, size 41, that fit Noah. Footprints led into the woods, then disappeared into a shallow section of the river. There, they also found a gray hoodie, with bloodstains. What seemed like a straightforward investigation, teenager kills foster parents and flees, took a turn when an anonymous call was placed to the Oregon State Police on October 18, 6 days after the bodies were found. I saw him, the man said, his voice hoarse. He wasn't human anymore. He was sitting on the rocks, looking at me, not blinking. He didn't run. He just smiled. When asked for his location, the caller hung up. The number was untraceable. It was from a payphone in another small town 30 miles away. Another twist: the only camera near the road, located at a gas station, recorded a backpack-wearing teen walking south at 3 a.m. on October 8. But the camera's timestamp was wrong. Exactly 2 hours late. This raised the question: did Noah leave the cabin before his parents died, or did someone else kill them and frame him? On October 22, a group of hunters stumbled upon an old backpack, carelessly buried under a pile of rotting leaves in Coyote Gulch. Inside were a sketchbook filled with grim charcoal drawings, hanging men, burning houses, a child hugging his knees in a dark corner, Gerald's wristwatch, a short note, written in black ink: I don't hate them, but I hate the way they love me. Like I'm something they picked up off the road, wiped clean, and expected me to shine. Just outside the canyon, the hunters found a trail of cold ash, a fire that had gone out a few days earlier. Next to it was a can of baked beans, half opened, a sign that Noah was still alive and hiding among us. If someone had listened to Noah, would the other two still be alive? Nearly 3 weeks after the shocking murder in Blue Mountain, Oregon, the name Noah Whitmore became a national obsession. Television, podcasts, YouTube all replayed the image of the 15-year-old boy, his eyes dark as a storm was brewing. While police and searchers continued to search for him in the woods, the entire town of La Grande was on edge. Every forest was a threat now. Every stray teen was looked at with suspicion. Noah's silence became the loudest scream. On November 5, 2013, a forest patrolman found Noah. He sat against a large rock at the edge of the forest, gaunt, eyes bloodshot, a faint smile on his face as if he had known this moment all along. No resistance. No running. I expected to see a cornered animal. What I saw was a child. Eaten from the inside, said Officer Robert Lanes. Noah was taken to the Union County Sheriff's Office, where he remained completely silent for 48 hours. Then, unexpectedly, he asked to see a forensic artist. Not a lawyer. Not a priest. Not a psychologist. He said only one sentence: I want to tell the story by drawing it. For the next 6 days, Noah drew, constantly. 47 pages, each a slice of memory, the image of the boy sitting alone in the dark, his hands symbolically tied. The final scene in court: Linda, Gerald's sister, the only remaining member of the family, stepped up to the podium, not crying, not looking at Noah. She simply said, "There are children who need love. But there are children who need a miracle. And my sister is not a witch." More than a decade after the case, Oregonians still remember Noah as a quiet storm, a storm that did not roar, did not collapse houses, but only silently scratched people's hearts with a scratch that would never heal. The case launched a series of mental health education programs for foster families. The psychological testing procedures for children before and after adoption were extensively reformed in many states. A teacher who taught Noah, in a workshop on silent children, said, "We always ask, 'Did you do your homework?' but rarely ask, 'Did you feel alive?'" Noah, rightly or wrongly, forced society to look at the cost of silence. We begin this story with the image of a child disappearing, leaving nothing but doubt. And we end it with a question, still unanswered: if that was your child, would you have listened to him soon enough? If love is not accompanied by understanding, is it really anything more than a beautiful cage? If silence is the only weapon a child can use to protest, will you ever hear his cry for help? And if the very people who are supposed to be saviors are inadvertently the reason for his demise, what is the crime, and what is the tragedy?